Howdy, and welcome back to the Texas Bucket List. Up next, we head to the beach to try to find some treasure. But I'm not talking about gold or silver. That's because the things they find at the Mission-Aransas Reserve are way more interesting than that. If you've never stood on the shores of the coastal bend, you've never experienced one of the most serene places in the Lone Star State. The smell of the salty sea filling your sinuses, the wind's steady breeze keeping birds aloft, and the sounds of massive ships sailing out to the Gulf are just some of the everyday occurrences that can transfix your inner sailor's soul. The Mission-Aransas Reserve in Port Aransas is a great place to start your ocean adventure because here they're doing their best to keep the coast as clean as can be.
We concentrate a lot of our work up in the bays and estuaries. We look from everything from water quality to habitat assessments to looking at sea level rise and erosion of land, and we look long term.
Jace Tunnell is a marine biologist and reserve director at the University of Texas Marine Science Institute. He was born down the road in Taft and spent his youth on these very waters.
Always grew up surfing at the beach, and even today I spend a lot of my time at the beach.
That's because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
My father was a marine scientist, and he was at Texas A&M Corpus Christi for over 40 years, and he used to take us to the beach all the time, but it wasn't the typical, you know, we're gonna go play in the sand, build sandcastles. It was like, we're collecting data. You know, we're driving down the National Seashore 60 miles and we're counting every bird that's down there. You know, it was always science driven.
Jace does much of the same at the Mission-Aransas Reserve, and that includes taking care of a few turtles at the Amos Rehabilitation Keep, or ARK for short.
So we've got 3 different species of sea turtles in here. These right here, we call our floaters. They're green sea turtles, and they've all been hit by a boat.
Even coastal birds are brought back to health at this center.
Our laughing gulls are very vocal. You see why they get their name.
Yeah. But what really piques people's interest in this place is the trash.
Over this last year, we've been collecting stuff off the beach from our beach surveys in preparation for an auction that we have once a year. Tony Amos started doing trash about 25 years ago. He would drive along on Mustang Island, and every other day he was doing a survey. So he would count the trash, the types of trash that are out there. He'd also count like the number of people, number of cars, dogs, but trash is one of the most important things he was collecting because you could see how trash changed over time.
A lot of buoys, a lot of duck decoys.
Yeah, like life rings, you know, stuff that's out there trying to tell people where they ought to be in the channel. These floats that we find here,
sure.
A lot of these are from either crab trapping, and then everything else from scientific equipment to messages in a bottle.
Oh, wow.
We've done a lot of research looking at like, where is this coming from? Is it people leaving all this trash out here? And it turns out that a lot of it is from the loop current that goes around Mexico, goes into the Gulf Stream of around Florida, and then it creates these eddies that push anything in that current up towards the Texas coast.
You found a leg.
We found a leg. Yeah, I think the funny thing about this is that this was sort of partly buried in the sand when we found it. And I was like, oh my God, there's a body over there. And I walked up, and when I pulled it out, I was like, oh, thank God, it's just a leg.
Finding a prosthetic leg isn't the craziest thing that Jace and his team have come across. The trash treasure that gets the town talking are the dolls. The amount of dolls y'all get is pretty substantial, isn't it?
Yeah, we find probably 1 or 2 dolls a month, but you know, you put that over a 5-year period, we're finding hundreds of dolls. So this is where we keep the creepy dolls.
In a creepy garage. Oh yeah, those are creepy.
I mean, some of them, you probably would have a hard time sleeping at night after you see pictures of them.
Initially, they didn't think anything about the terrifying toy trash, but after seeing the response people had to the decimated dolls, things changed.
When we were doing our surveys, we would start taking pictures of like the things that we were finding. Oh man. And so one time we found this head that was about this big, and we took a photo of that, and that was the first photo that we put in a long string of natural stuff that we were finding. And I mean, people went crazy over this on our social media. So we said, you know what, we're finding these things. People are obviously interested on them.
The things you find.
The things we find. Every time we find a doll, that is gonna be the first photo we show, and then we'll teach them something at the end about something that's washing up at the beach. And it's really just taken off from there.
Reel them in with the shock value and then get the good stuff in there.
Yeah, and I mean, it works.
Okay, now this one goes along with the creepies.
Right.
That's pretty creepy.
And when we find these, they're sort of covered up with sand, and who knows how long they've been out. This one has a barnacle, barnacles growing on them.
Oh, wow.
So they were probably out in the ocean for a while. People have a lot of theories about where these dolls have come from. Some people think that they are haunted, and so like if dolls come up, don't touch them. Somebody's throwing them out there to, with some kind of crazy spells on them. But I have my own theory about where they're coming from.
Okay, well, what is it?
We know that a lot of countries don't have good systems for where to put their waste. A lot of people are living on rivers. So some countries are just pushing their trash right out into the ocean. And so we're probably just getting a lot of people's trash.
The reserve has capitalized on the loot and now raises funds from the crazy things they find on the shores of Texas.
We do host an annual auction where all this stuff we find, we're trying to raise money for the sea turtles. For all this effort, we make about $2,000.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
That's right, and what's funny, the auction's actually called Trash to Treasure.
Oh, nice, nice.
Now that the dolls have a following, they are the big ticket items when it comes to the auction.
We just sold one in the fall at an auction for $250.
Wow, looks like there's still water in them too.
Yeah, water and sand, look at that.
Wow. Hey, you're depreciating the value of that one.
Yeah, yeah, the heavier, the more money we get.
Yeah.
While the figurines are an overboard oddity of the ocean, the awareness these diabolical dolls are bringing to the reserve is priceless and will help continue their mission of protecting a priceless piece of the Lone Star State.
Making sure that we're doing everything that we can so that the next generation can enjoy the same nature that we did growing up is important, and everyone has a part in that.